Welcome everyone to our next section of the Female Disruptors virtual conference. It is my great pleasure to introduce you to Pascale Dube. Our topic for this session is parenting hacks for teens to inspire and win trust. It was my great pleasure to listen to Pascale be interviewed by Lisa Beyer earlier today, and I cannot wait to hear more, and I have my own questions to throw in. Pascale is a communications specialist with over 20 years of experience in varied industries. Pascale has coached leaders and business owners and found the common missing link in all problems leaders face: an inability to communicate properly with their teams. Witnessing families going through a tough time during the pandemic, she was reminded of her own story, growing up as a teenager in a family shaken by illness and unspoken pains. That is why she decided to use her talents and experience as a leadership coach to help parents develop their dream relationship with their teenager by coaching them into becoming the leaders their teenagers need. And I love it's not, hey, do the best you can getting to be friendly with your teen. No, your dream relationship. So we've set the bar high. I love it.
Absolutely. You can achieve that if you master some few key leadership skills. You can manage a very good relationship with your teenager. It doesn't have to be painful all the time, because I mean, life is hard enough. When you get home, you don't want to have it hard and being hard because of tensions you may have with your teenager. So yeah, I'm going to teach you a few hacks today that I gathered during the course of my coaching career as a leadership coach, and also I worked with teenagers a couple of years as a summer camp counselor, and teenagers were my people. So I'm super used to working with teenagers. I love them. I understand them, and I've been a teenager, and I still remember it quite vividly. So I will start my presentation by just asking a few questions, and I will share my screen a little later just to show some slides that people may actually grab and keep for themselves, because those are really basics of communications that you can ask yourself, am I doing this right? Should I improve on some stuff? So before we start, of course, professional bias. I've been a leadership coach, and now I teach parents to become leaders. So I'm going to get you into like a little reflection time. I want you to think back on your life and see and imagine one of the worst bosses you ever had. I'm pretty sure some of you had pretty bad bosses in your life. Of course, there's the autocrat, who wanted you to perform and do as you were told without asking questions. They made irrational decisions about your job without consulting you. They could never deal with you questioning them. I'm pretty sure most of you have had an autocrat in their lives, in their professional lives. And of course, they never took the time to talk with you and get to know you, because they couldn't give, a rat's ass about who you were as long as you performed. So that's the autocrat. Now, I've also had a couple of micromanagers in my life, who looked over your shoulder to see whatever you were doing and see if you were doing it right, like they would have done. They never trusted you with responsibilities. They focused on results, but they never acknowledged progress, because, they were focused on the results. Just they wanted to see the numbers, do the numbers align? And of course, the micromanager, since they're micromanaging you, they always hold you responsible for your past mistakes, and they talk about that over and over again, and they hold your past mistakes against you. So the micromanager is one of the worst. Now, there's another kind of boss that you may have encountered in your life, and I call them the overly friendly boss. Those are the one who wanted to know, they wanted you to know what you were expected to do. They wanted you to kind of guess what they wanted without never having to talk with you and telling you what they were expecting of you. They wanted you to just, guess what the work was about. They avoided conflict all the time. and they avoided important discussions with you. So just that they can remain your friend, those are the bosses that you go take a beer with after work. And they could never make up their mind about anything. They could never make a decision, because decisions, they might imply the fact that you would not agree with them and it doesn't sit well with them. And of course, there's the good old shark, who compares you to all of your coworkers and instills like a cutthroat atmosphere in the workplace. The shark may lie to you or hide things from you when they think that, you don't have to have this information, even though it would be important for you to do your job properly. And of course, they profess all of those magnificent values, but what they do is in direct contradiction with what they say they profess. So the autocrat, the micromanager, the overly friendly, and the shark. I would like to know which one of those bosses you ever encountered in your professional life. I would be curious to see which one of those you encountered in your life. So the autocrat, the micromanager, the shark, and the overly friendly.
So Pascale, everyone should go into the chat now.
Yeah. Go in the chat. Autocrat, micromanager, overly friendly, or the shark.
Or
which one of those? All over the place. I know them because I've had one of each, at least, in my professional career, and I've coached some of them as a leadership coach. So just to let you think about this, we've got some micromanagers. Yeah, I know those. They're quite toxic. So just think about the way that those people make you feel in the workplace. The micromanager maybe just you feel unmotivated. You don't want to work with such a leader. The autocrat, why bother making decision if the autocrat is just going to tell you what to do? So you have to, shut down your brain and just do as you're told. It doesn't really feel that good, right? And the overly friendly, who never makes a decision or makes up their mind, you have to take all the responsibility, and it's not good, right? It doesn't feel good. So none of those bosses is the ideal leader for you to follow. Now, I want you to imagine, what if those types of bosses, instead of being your boss, what if that person was your mother or your father? Now, I'm pretty sure some parents are guilty of some of those behaviors. And sometimes we don't realize that we're actually being a micromanager in our home. And we don't realize that, if our teenager is unmotivated, it may have something to do with the fact that we're micromanaging them. Or perhaps we're missing or lacking some skills in terms of leadership to inspire them and make them adhere to what we want them to do, or adhere to the family life. So I know that some teenagers, they just, they unplug, because what's the point? If the leader ahead of them, their parent, is not the leader that they want to follow? Why follow? Why bother? And of course, during the teenage years, teenagers want to separate from you. So that's another issue. They want to be different from you. They want to, claim their own identity. And if there's something that you're doing that's not inspiring them, or that they don't really agree with, conflict and tension will arise in the home. And that's not surprising. They're going to feel like you with your boss that you don't really like. And of course, they cannot change jobs. They cannot apply for another job elsewhere and try to find another leader. So what they're going to do, they're going to find leadership elsewhere, or influence outside the home, where they can learn new types of leaderships. But that doesn't mean that you lose the control over your kid. It just means that you may have some things that you need to work on. And that's what we're going to go through today with the hacks and tips that we'll provide. So let me share my screen. I will show you a couple of things that I think would be relevant for you as a parent, of course. And they're all about leadership. So of course there is leadership, but leadership in the end is leadership, and communication skills are communication skills. So perhaps, just to start, you could ask yourself the difference between boss and leader. I think the analogy between a boss and a parent, or a leader and a parent, is really relevant in your life. So if you think about your own experience professionally and apply that in your home, you may be able to change some behaviors by yourself and really improve the atmosphere in your home and just basically the family life. So are you a boss or a leader in your home? Because the way we inspire and communicate is indicative of our own level of confidence. And I know that some parents lack confidence when it comes to parenting. And sometimes we doubt ourselves, and sometimes we have fear that we're not doing enough, that we're not enough. And of course, this reflects in the family home. And all of those confidence issues, it rubs off on our teenagers. And we really want to be the best role model we want to be for them, right? So by working on your leadership skills, it can really help to teach them new skills or to inspire them to go learn those kinds of things outside the home, or perhaps get inspired by other role models. Of course, there's a difference between rules and common agreement. When I was talking about the boss, that's the autocrat, you know, he decides the rules and you have to abide by the rules. It's very different from a leader who will consult with their employees. So you know that you can negotiate with your teenager and you can come to a common agreement, and then it will be way easier for you to implement the consequences. So there's a difference between punishment and consequence. If you come to a common agreement with your teenager and you have decided what the rules for the agreement were, what the consequences, if there was a breach in the agreement, if you agreed on the consequences of the agreement, then there's really no arguing between the parent and the teenager, because it's kind of it's a contract that goes both ways. And your teenager is old enough to understand that if they give their word, they have to keep it, but you have to lead by example, of course. And autocracy versus empowerment, you can leave them the choice. So if they want to make a stupid decision, they can make it, you know, foster that. Mistakes are made, things are learned, but you can decide to empower them and basically assume the consequences of their choices. And you can build that kind of relationship where you will basically put the ground and put the basics for these consequences, but you have to enforce them once they are put in place. You have to make sure that you are consistent. And that goes with trust. You know, the talk is called Parenting Hacks for Teens to Inspire and Win Trust. Well, we're gonna have to ask ourselves, what is trust and what is it made of? How can we build trust? There are some fundamentals and there are some truly basics and foundation to trust, and they are listed here. So if anyone wants to grab this, I think it could be a good reminder for you. Do a screen grab and keep it. Trust is built on 8 things that need to be addressed if you really want to either maintain trust or if you want to build it. Because we know during...
Can you put it as a slideshow so that it's
Sure,
a good
yeah,
slide?
absolutely. Yeah.
Thank you.
Do you see it? Yeah.
Yes, yes,
Okay.
very good.
Fantastic. So basically, trust is built on those factors. Consistency is one key element. That means that if you say something or say that you stand for something and you do something that contradicts what you said, consistency then is just, there's a breach in trust because consistency has not been consistent, basically. Truth, if you lie blatantly to your teenager and they find out, or if you know, half-truth, you know, half-baked truths, they can sense it. They're old enough to understand when you're not being truthful to them because there are telltale signs in your behavior or your attitude. Being truthful is key. Don't lie to your teenager, which doesn't mean that they have to know everything, but with transparency, everything that applies to them or that they are involved in, if you hide things from them and they find out, there will be a breach in trust. And the behaviors that may arise from that breach in trust would be, perhaps they will start hiding things from you or avoid you or stop talking to you about what they are going through. And this information is very important when you are raising a teenager, because there are influences coming from outside. You don't know who their influences are, and you may start to get worried if they don't come to you with their problems, and they will start to avoid you or hide things from you, and you don't want that. So transparency is important. Accountability also. If you make a mistake, maybe when they were younger, you could hide it or not talk about it. But now that they are teenagers, if you make a mistake or if you are wrong about something, just admitting you're wrong will go a long way into building trust. Kindness, of course, is key. Be open-minded with what they're going through. Humility goes also with saying sorry when you hurt them, and be vulnerable. Being vulnerable is really important. Humility, you don't know everything. And by now, they kind of figured out that you don't know everything. So trying to make save face in front of a teenager can be a bit pointless, because they know that you don't know everything. And if not, they've got one of those devices to go check online and see that you're wrong. So that's not good. So, and then the last one is courage and outcomes. What are the results that you get with your actions? They're going to start to see and look at the impact you have with your friends, with your family, what kind of behaviors you have. They're going to start to analyze, what kind of person you are outside the home. And they're going to see, okay, is my father or my mother different when they're not home? Are they consistent in their behavior, or they're changing the way that they're acting with others? And that can teach them that you may not be that trustworthy, and they may start to question you a lot more. So those are a few things that you have to watch out for when you are dealing with your teenager and engaging with your teenager. I'm going to go through a couple of other things that you might look at. Another few keys takeaway that you might want to look at, and how to inspire really your teenager. I'm really doing this fast, and of course, if you want to attend one of my workshops, we go about this for 3 hours, but I really try to make it more succinct. If you want to inspire your teenager, try to stop having the only one discussion you have, which is, have they done their chores? Are they coming home at the time that was decided? Do they abide by your rules? If you only have those types of discussions with your teenager, no wonder that they avoid you. They don't want to disappoint you, because yes, they still want your approval, even though they may say they don't. And if you want to inspire your teenager, you're going to have to start planning for the future. You're going to have to change the discussion and try to ask open questions about what they want, what is important for them. You may even ask, how do they see their role moving forward in the family? Can they take on more responsibilities? What do they want to experience in the family? You can start involving them in the family decisions about, going on vacations, or even making choices when it comes to nutrition. You can start to involve them into cooking. You can start to make some new moments with your teenager and have one-on-one moments with your teenagers. It's paramount if you want to keep that relationship moving forward. And that's the only way you're going to know your teenager, is by spending time with them, because at that age, they are changing so fast. You've got no idea. Biologically, it's the fastest, quickest pace of change that they are going through into their whole lives. Their brain is changing, their social life is changing, and it can be very overwhelming for them. And they really, really, really need you to navigate those changes, because it can be very confusing. It can be scary. And so I'm going to leave you with a little image that I like, because I think it's pretty important to make the difference between the two. Your teenager is going to make mistakes, that's for sure. Mistakes are unavoidable, and mistakes as a parent is unavoidable. I always say to my clients, being a parent is the hardest job there is. Being the parent of a teenager is even harder. And so mistakes will be made. You have to be, forgiving towards yourself, but also forgiving for your teenager. Mistakes are a path for learning. And so there's always the leadership dilemma. Are you going to provide them with a cooked fish, or are you going to show them how to fish? And I strongly believe that your role as a parent is to show them how to fish. And they may make mistakes along the way, but they will learn. And the things that they learn when they're teenagers are the things that they will keep with them forever. So the example that you put out for them in terms of leadership, in terms of openness, in terms of communications, those are things that they will remember, that they will copy, because they learn still by copying you. You're their role model, their prime role model, even though they have other ones, but they're going to learn from you, and you're going to lead by example, which is even stronger when it comes to learning for teenagers. So being aware of our patterns is really key. Where do you fall flat? Where in the trust foundation, which one of those pillars are you weakest at? Where should you focus your attention in order for you to have the biggest impact? Where do you should you concentrate your efforts to change in order to really build or strengthen your relationship with your teenager? Those are keys, because trust is the main currency of any relationship you're going to have in your life. And with your teenagers, it's even more important, because the relationship you have, of course, with your kid is a relationship you cannot move away from. It's a relationship you're going to have forever. So the better care you take of it, the better you're going to feel moving forward when they become adult, when they move to college. So I put that here. Of course, being aware is the first way that you're going to change. If you're not aware of the patterns you need to change, no change will happen. You cannot change your teenager, unfortunately, but what you can do is influence your teenager by changing yourself. You can shift the whole dynamic of your relationship with your teenager if you really focus on building trust. And you don't have to change the whole of it. You don't have to change who you are as a person. You only have to do some tweaks and change some key elements in your behavior or the way you're communicating with them to change the whole dynamics in your family. And just remember, they are changing very quickly. You have to adapt. And so you can remember that what used to be, it doesn't have to be forever. Being adaptable is a very big quality for parents. And of course, I speak from my own experience. Coaching is the fastest and best way to ensure that you can change and to measure your progress. So a word of caution about progress. People think that progress is a straight line. Nah, it looks a lot more like the red line here. Progress is about moving forward, moving backward, going all over the place. But eventually, you'll get where you want to go. So that's about that for me. I don't know if you've got some questions. I will gladly answer. If you've got even personal questions, I can answer. Fire away.
Well, I do have some of my own. We also got the question in, what are your feelings about intervention of therapists when you hit an impasse?
When there's an impasse, I will never say to someone, don't go to a therapist, because there might be deeper problems that are underneath the surface that need to be addressed. Sometimes there are mental health issues. So never in a million years will I ever say, don't consult a therapist. But sometimes you don't have to go to a therapist. Sometimes going through a coach can really help improve. What's an impasse? An impasse is you need to know something you don't know. Because sometimes it can only be some small change to implement that will unblock everything. It doesn't need to be very big. Of course, getting help is very important. Getting any professional help can help you. It depends of the block, of the nature of the block, I would say. Sometimes it can even be health related. So yeah, therapy, I will never say no to therapy. Therapy is good. It can be very, very helpful.
Yeah, I think there's a follow-up, but basically it's when your child won't communicate with you, when they've shut down.
Yeah, well, that's usually a manifestation of that trust that's been broken. We would have to find out where the trust was broken and when. Perhaps it's been a long time coming. So maybe it originated earlier, even pre-teen years. And sometimes it can be related to something that they're ashamed of. It doesn't even have to do with you. Sometimes it's not even about you. So by finding out and by reaching out to your kid, even though they don't communicate, if you can be in the same room as them and engage by sharing your own feelings about what's going on and vulnerability, let me tell you, it's the hardest thing to work on. But once you master that vulnerability, it's a connection highway. Your kid doesn't know what's going on in your emotions. They're overwhelmed by their own stuff, probably. So try to open the door to conversation, but do it in a way that doesn't make them feel attacked or judged. So wear your heart on your sleeve and try to tell your kid that, it hurts you that they're not talking to you. Would it be possible to open dialogue? They might say yes, they might say no. But at least you would have made the first step.
That's great. That sort of leads to my question as well. Because I've actually seen the reverse. I see parents oversharing to be vulnerable and close, and because they maybe came from a very hidden home.
Yeah.
But then I see with kids, and we have 2 kids of our own, and I've worked with kids of all ages, where then the kids don't feel like they're in a stable environment because mom and dad are like they're towing too many issues and too many vulnerabilities.
Yeah, just remember, I'm going to be harsh. Remember, you're the parent. So yes, you may not have everything figured out, but your kid is not your therapist. And so if you have emotional issues, I strongly suggest that you consult someone. Again, it can be a coach, it can be a therapist. It depends of the nature of your issues. I can speak from experience because my mother used to confide a lot in me when I was younger, and it may be why I became a coach. It certainly influenced my decision to work with parents because I felt like I could make a difference. But yeah, it was a heavy burden for a kid to go about life knowing that there were issues between the parents. They're still the person that you're supposed to rely on when you're a kid, and not the other way around.
Yeah, there's definitely a happy medium.
Yeah.
All right, so that was our time for our last question. Thank you so much, Pascale. Such amazing tips and great takeaways, and really appreciate you sharing your expertise.
Thank you very much. I shared a freebie, so if you want to go, I put the 10 golden rules for better communications with your team. It's in my speaker profile. You can go and download it. It's going to give you quite good insights, I think.
Excellent. Thank you so much. Everybody look for Pascale Dube. You can find her on LinkedIn.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.